Hello, and welcome to Cinema Reel-ness, Side Escape's movie-themed show. My name is Maddie, and each week I will be joined by a guest to discuss a random movie topic on Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. This week I am joined by the one and only guest we've ever had on this show, Jake Burke.
I am, unless you're watching the show out of order, and future episodes have different guests, and then you're confusing other people.
Yes.
So it's like when you eventually have Christian Bale on to talk about his next great movie, they'd be like, no, Christian Bale's on the show. What are you talking about? Just Jake's here. You know, it's,
You give me a lot of credit for my interviews.
Yeah, he's coming.
He's coming, right? Yeah. We got him in the works. We've been talking to him.
Mm-hmm. He's coming for The Dark Knight Returns when Nolan finally goes back to that.
Ah, yes. Because I'm sure Nolan will do that.
But Christian Bale's topical for this, what we're about to talk about.
It is, actually. It's very good. It's very topical. Because this week, we are going to be talking about the two modern film adaptations of the very famous novel Little Women. Yeah. So Jake had never seen them before, and I grew up watching the 1994 film with Winona Ryder all the time, and I read the book as a kid, so it's a story that's really close to me, and I was really excited when I heard that Greta Gerwig was going to direct a new adaptation. I was a little nervous because that was something really important to me, but I'm very happy afterwards, which we'll talk about more later, but I think she did a phenomenal job, and I shouldn't have doubted Greta Gerwig because she's the best and I love her.
And so we're comparing and contrasting, right?
Yes, we are comparing and contrasting the 1994 film to the 2019 film. And so just a little summary in case you don't know much about Little Women. It's the story of four sisters growing up in Concord, Massachusetts during the Civil War. And it's kind of about the adventures that they have living together. And they are suddenly kind of put in they were once rich and put in more impoverished situations. So there's like the themes of poverty versus wealth that come up a lot in the book, as well as sisterhood, love, and feminism, which is really, really good. It's really interesting.
So before we start this, I don't know, can I spoil the story of Little Women?
Yes.
Is it a treasured story?
No, you're allowed because most people know Little Women.
So most people know that Joe March eventually turns into an alien, ascends, and then takes over the planet. Okay, cool.
Yes, they do.
All right, I just want to make sure.
Oh, yeah. No, everyone knows that.
Okay.
It's very common knowledge. She starts her own planet, colonizes it all. Yeah. Very, very important. Important plot point.
Yeah.
All right. So, question number one for you, Jake. How do you feel about the two movies? Compare and contrast a little bit for me.
So, the first one that came out in 1994, which obviously isn't the first Little Women ever made.
There's been other ones. We're just doing the two modern ones.
Yeah. Which modern is a very loose term.
Well, yes, modern.
Yeah, the one in the 90s.
In our lifetime.
Right. The 1994 one with Winona Ryder is fine. It is it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, I even think fine's like, it's a fine film. No, it's okay.
Yeah.
Because the problem with that movie is it's based on a book, and it does the thing that movies do a lot where they write off a book where it's like, we got to hit the key plot points of this book, and it doesn't flow like a movie. It's more like a companion to when you've read the book.
Yeah.
Well, like we watched Lord of the Rings recently during all this quarantine business.
What? What's going on?
See, timely. You're like, oh, this is taking place in coronavirus. That's why Christian Bale's on in 2022.
Yeah.
Understandable.
Yes.
But so like it's written very much in this like truncated form. But with Lord of the Rings, they kind of did the thing where they shifted elements of the story around to make the story flow for film.
Right.
And I felt like Greta Gerwig does that really well in her version. Be it very confusing at times when because she jumps back in the past a lot, and it takes place in two different times where the first 1994 version is all chronological.
Right.
But I think the chronological order makes it feel really jumpy.
Yes.
Where Greta Gerwig's version makes sense when you're jumping back and forth between two time periods and having like the events of one time period affect the events of another, kind of like the mental thing. And I think the acting is overall way better in the 2019 version. Right?
2019.
Yeah. I said 2019. That's how people say it.
Oh.
Come on.
I don't know.
So I think that obviously, like, Timothée Chalamet plays it, and I don't know his name. Henry? John?
Laurie.
Yeah. What's his first name?
It's Laurie.
No. He's got like a real first name. Laurie's like a nickname because his last name is Lawrence.
Teddy is his nickname.
Teddy. It's because his name is Theodore Lawrence. Yes, 100%.
Yes, that's
Take that to the goddamn bank.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know why I thought it was Henry. But anyways, Christian Bale's Henry, Christian Bale's Teddy, is like kind of just there, and he is a plot point of the book because he's in the book. Where like Timothée Chalamet's character is like way more involved and developed, and like choices that he makes make sense for when he marries the youngest sister in their movie, opposed to the 94 version when like the younger sister just meets him on, I forget the younger sister's name. Amy. And Amy just like meets him in Paris, like, we're getting married, and it's like, what the hell? Like, that's there's nothing here, but it's kind of developed a lot better. So I thought overall, just development wise, 94 version lacked because it was trying to be the book, where they took the story of the book and adapted it for a film.
The book is like 1,000 pages. It's this really long book, so it does make sense that the way that Greta Gerwig like kind of cuts back and forth makes more sense for a movie versus the film, the 1994 one. Was there anything you liked about the older version?
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad movie. Like, I think it's still like it flowed decently well. It's comedic in some points. I really like Winona Ryder as Jo. Obviously, I think Saoirse Ronan in modern day plays that role better, but I think the role is written better for her opposed to what Winona Ryder had. Right. But I still think she's an engaging character, and I did enjoy the portrayal of the older sister in Meg in 1994, opposed to Emma Watson, which I thought was interesting because I like Emma Watson.
That's interesting because I liked the way Emma Watson did it better. Can you speak? Why do you like the other version better?
I thought it was more of like an older figure, like the portrayal of like the older sister, opposed to Emma Watson just played like you didn't know the age limits basically. Like, I didn't feel like they were like, she's the oldest sister, and like they hit that point where like that was kind of the purpose of her character to Jo in the younger time, and she was much more just like a even level, like they could have been the same age, or Jo could have been older in 2019 version. That's just kind of how I felt. I don't know the actor that played Meg in 94.
I have her name. It's Trina Alvarado.
Well, Trina Alvarado, if you're watching this, you did a great job. Not being said, I think Emma Watson does very good, like well with her role. And her role is a little more expanded and focused on in like her marriage and like afterlife and kind of like that whole system. But going from the 94 version, where I felt like her character was more involved in Jo's life, rather than focusing on just her life.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I think this actually gets into perfectly what I wanted to do, which was compare and contrast. Like, because basically the main part of the movie is about the sisters. So I feel like that is a good way to kind of go back and forth between both movies. Yeah. Like, kind of talk what you liked about the other version, which is not. So what I really liked about Emma Watson's was I really love the line that Greta writes about how just because my dreams are different than yours does not mean they're not valid, which I think we kind of briefly talked about this. I think there's this kind of, in like feminism, there's this idea that you can't want like to be at home with your kids or like be married. And I think she kind of shines a light on like, no, that's totally, if that's what you want, that is okay. Like, you don't have to be someone who wants the career, and like, if what makes you happy is that's what you want to be with your kids and at home, that's totally fine, you know? Yeah. Which I really like that message, that if you don't have to be the career person if you don't want to be. Right. But I do agree with you. I like how in the older version, Meg is more of that like older sister, and I think that's really well done in the sisters' roles anyways. You know the order of the sisters very well in the old one versus the young one. The other one is kind of like, they're like, oh, they're all kind of even. You don't really know the order too much of like, except that Amy's the youngest. That's really kind of what you
get. Because her actress changes in the old movie.
Right, but in the new one, you just understand that Amy is the youngest. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And that's I don't know if you have other questions that jump to this, but that's, I think, the newer version's biggest problem is that the time jumping and using the same actresses to play both ages is somewhat jarring at certain points, and trying to figure out like, how old are they supposed to be? Where are they? Like Florence Pugh, I think is how you say her last name. Yeah. She's very good in the movie. She's outstanding. Obviously, she's nominated for an Academy Award for this movie. But like, they were the first time they jump back to the past, and it is her as a little kid. She looks the exact same age. She looks 25 or whatever, and she's like playing with her nose, and it's like they're like, oh, she's a kid, she's playing with her nose, but it's like she doesn't look like she's a kid. Like, this is almost like a stage play, and you're not portraying this enough to make her a little kid. It just looks like she is a contemporary with her sisters, rather than like so much younger.
Right.
And it just makes her look like a spoiled brat rather than a little kid. And she is a spoiled brat.
That's the point of her character, is that she grows out of it.
Yeah, but she's so much like more heightened as just this kind of like antagonizing, spoiled girl rather than like the younger sister learning. Because she just looks the same age.
Right. Which is what I liked about they did the older version, is they have two different actresses play Amy, which is they have the younger version is Kristen Dunst, and they have the older version is Samantha Mathis.
Yeah, and the older version's not good in that
She's not good. It's not that she's not good, it's the character is not good.
Yeah.
It goes to what you're talking about how like the writing I don't feel like is super strong in the old version.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make a lot of sense, older Amy. It's like the stakes are not high enough for what is happening, and I don't think you understand like there's like this whole plot point where Joe has been taking care of their Aunt March for years. And our Aunt March promises to take her to Europe when she goes back. And then their other sister, Beth, gets sick, and Joe stays to take care of Beth, and Amy goes to stay with Aunt March instead, and she becomes the new companion. But Joe has always been promised that had this idea she was going to go to Europe with Aunt March, because that's what she promised, and Aunt March takes Amy instead. And there's this whole point that Joe is kind of being like, looked over again for like one of her sisters.
And neither of the movies do this very well.
No, they don't. But I would say it's especially bad in the old version because you don't really get why she's so upset. Versus in the new one, I think you get it.
They have a scene.
There's a scene and you get it a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they don't. That's something that's kind of like weaker. It's a bigger deal in the books because you see Joe spend more time with Aunt March in the book versus the movie. You don't have time to explain it. Mm-hmm. But I think what I like how Florence Pugh is because she's such a great actress and she's able to carry the role, but it is kind of confusing, like you're saying in the flashbacks, that like it's like what are you talking about? Amy's always the same age versus in the old movie. It flows a bit more, but the acting is not on the same par.
Yeah, it's a directorial choice that I don't think works how Greta Gerwig expected it to work.
Yeah.
It's great if you've watched, like, we've talked about this.
Yeah.
I'm so glad we watched the 1994 version before the new one because I feel like I would have been very lost in what was happening, especially in the first 20 minutes of that movie.
Yeah.
Until they really explain it to you, but like they kind of just thrust you into the story, and Greta Gerwig expects you to know it.
Yeah.
I think a little bit too much. Mm-hmm. Almost to a downfall. That the 1994 version, be it chronologically, and that makes it kind of stale throughout the movie. At least gives you kind of what's going on and eases you into the story, where the other version's so truncated.
It goes back and forth a lot.
Jumping around.
Yeah. I was happy to have read the book to understand what was going on, and I feel like I was kind of like a guideline for you. You'd be like, wait, what's happening? It's like, this is happening right now. And this is what's happening. Because the movements are kind of jarring. Mm. But I really like what they do with Amy's character in the Greta Gerwig one, because they make her more of a rounded character versus in the old one it's like she just kind of sucks when she's older. There's like there's nothing, she doesn't learn anything she's supposed to, but she doesn't in the movie. Versus in the new one, they make this really smart decision that she's always been in love with Laurie since she was a little kid, and Joe and Laurie are connected. Like they've always had like not a thing for each other, it's like basically like this really deep friendship. But Laurie thinks it's something more, and it ends up not working out, and they don't talk for several years because he proposes and Joe says no, which is a very big plot point. But basically, Laurie's like gallivanting around, like wasting his uncle's money because he's supposed to be working for him, but he's not really. And he runs into Amy, and basically Laurie starts realizing he likes Amy, and what they do in the new movie is Amy like puts him down and is like, no, I don't want you if you just want me because of my family. Mm-hmm. And she like really stands up for herself, and she's like, I've loved you for so long, and just to see you coming after me because I'm, of my sister and you love her is like pathetic, and I don't want you if you're like that. Which is this really cool pillar to have her on, and like her core of like, she's always like wanting to marry wealthy, but that's because in that time, that's all she could do to help her family because they're poor, and this is the only way she can advance her family. And they make that this really cool point for her as well, which I think they don't really do in the old movie. They don't make her stand for anything, which is why she sucks.
Yeah.
Versus like all her other sisters stand for something or something important, and she's just there.
Yeah, I would think that's kind of actually the whole movie.
Yeah.
The whole 1994 movie in general is.
Yeah.
There is really one character in that movie, and everything else is happening around her.
Yeah.
And which is Winona Ryder's Jo March, and everything's just happening to her, rather than like other characters having their own moments.
Yes.
So I think that's a big kind of fault of the original movie, and it's just honestly a sign of the times and how they made book movies.
That's how they made movies back then.
Yeah.
And like now there's like this kind of new movement with like taking books and like making it more to how it works in a movie versus just adapting it.
And you can thank Marvel for that, guys.
And Lord of the Rings probably, honestly. I wanted to talk about Beth a little bit because I think they do something really interesting in the new movie that I'm not sure if that's what they're going for, but that's kind of how I interpreted it. Is Beth is her role, she's this very silent sister and she's always behind the scenes, and that's where she wants to be. She doesn't want to be like in the spotlight. She just wants to be with her family. But she loves music and she's a really talented pianist. And there's a man who lives across the street whose young daughter died around the same age as her, and he has this piano that he had for her. And so he offers to have Beth come over and play the piano. And I think there's this really interesting scene where she's like very reluctant to go and she doesn't want to talk to him, and there's kind of this impression along with other things that she does and how she plays with like her dolls, and she's too old to be playing with her dolls, is that she kind of comes off autistic, which I think is a really interesting interpretation of it, because in the book it doesn't say anything about that. It just says she's very shy and reserved and keeps to herself. But I kind of like the interpretation because maybe back then they didn't know what autism was, so it's very possible that she could have had autism. And I liked that kind of idea that she does. It's very subtle, but that's how I thought of it. Yeah.
I liked the modern version, 2019 version better, but I both thought they were kind of just there. The autism thing, like you pointed it out before we watched the movie, like watch what they do with Beth, because I think they're taking it this direction that she has some slight autism, which I thought was interesting, and you can definitely see how she plays it when you're looking for that. Which is cool. They don't make it like a big deal.
No, it's not like it's just very subtle.
I could not for the life of me tell you what the Beth of the first movie even looked like. So
it's Claire Danes.
Oh yeah, it's Homeland Girl. Yeah,
yes.
Okay. There you go. Well, there you go. So I think it's a character that, like I said, the problem with the 1994 version is everything's just happening to Jo. Beth is a character that just kind of, in my opinion, happens to Jo.
Yeah.
They do a little better explaining like with the piano playing and like her involvement with Chris Cooper, who's the dad of Timothée Chalamet, of Henry Laurie.
Uncle,
that is it, yeah. So I think they do a little better in exploring that relationship, but they just don't have enough time to really do anything with it. So it's very subtle. Her funeral scene is very sad though, with him not able to like even enter the house. I think is really beautiful. That his character I think is leaps and bounds better than the first movies, because he's actually a character.
Yes. The second one, they kind of just, they don't really acknowledge his presence.
Yeah. So, but I thought like Beth is kind of this character she's there. The event is more, she's there because the event happens to Jo, in my opinion. So.
Well, yeah, that's true, because it's about her death. That's the big, Beth dies. But I also think you look at like, she dies because her heart was weakened because she gets scarlet fever, but she gets scarlet fever because she's reaching out and helping these people who are like impoverished and like literally have no food and have like 5 kids. And it speaks to like her kindness, which is opposed to Jo's kind of like, go out there, like kind of brash. She's brash. And Beth is kind of there to be, it's okay to be calm and kind in this way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but that is not explained well. It's not explained at all in the 1994 version. She just gets sick and they're like, oh, this family got her sick. And you're like, I was like, what happened? Because they do nothing. Thank God in the newer version, they show them go over and like take food to them with the breakfast. But they don't like really talk about how she's still watching them. They like mention it once and then she's sick. And it's like, oh, it's because she's been watching them. And you're like, okay, like it just feels like this character is just there and stuff has to happen to her rather than stuff is happening to her.
I think
Beth,
yes. There's 4 sisters.
Yeah.
Beth plays a much more important role in the book.
I could see that.
And it's hard to translate it because there's so much going on that you need to hit plot-wise in the movie that you can't really go into her character. And I think that is kind of an injustice. Yeah. Because her character is very important in the book. But there's no way about it. That's how you have to do it. Unless you do 2 movies, like one younger and one older.
You don't need a part 1 and part 2. That's a lot of Little Women.
You don't. But
it's an army of Little Women.
I would love it. But it's a lot. I think last we should talk about Lori. I think Lori is a really
There's one character I just got to throw in there.
Who?
Because my girl Laura Dern plays the mom.
Oh, Marley.
And Laura Dern can do no wrong.
Yes.
So that's all I want to say. Laura Dern's really good. Susan Sarandon's whatever. Laura Dern fucking kills.
No, she kills it. She kills it. I love how Greta writes that Joe and her mom are so similar, but they don't, on appearance-wise, they don't look similar because her mom is older and like she used to be Joe when she was younger. And they make this really cool quote about that, about how she's like, oh, Joe's like, how are you so patient? How are you all this? She's like, well, I've had 40 years of practice.
Yeah,
like,
I'm not that patient.
I'm not that patient as you think I am. Yeah. So I think that's a really cool. Laura Dern, she kills it. She's awesome.
She's great.
Yeah.
Susan Sarandon's meh.
She's okay. They don't really give her a character. She's just the mom.
No.
And I don't think that's her fault.
Yeah.
But Lori, I think, is this really cool character in the new movie, which is how he's supposed to be, but it doesn't come across in the old version so much.
And I think it's because we've talked a lot about the story structure of the original movie opposed to 2019, and the way it's structured, and it's just a straight through shot. The character of Lori is, I feel like, not interesting because you don't see what happens to it, like what is happening to him in like modern times, but how his relationship with Joe is affected after she turns him down,
right?
Which I think you have to kind of show the aftermath beforehand to really get like, oh, that's how he got to this point.
Yeah.
And it's like really, it makes that scene really sad. Her kind of the confrontation between both of them.
Yeah.
And Timothée Chalamet's just an incredible actor. So
I also think it speaks to like Saoirse Ronan and Timothée Chalamet's chemistry was just incredible too. Like every scene they're in, it's so dynamic, and you can see how they are best friends, and like, but you could also see where like, I think that's the brilliant part of it. It's like you see how they're so close and best friends, but you could also see why like Lori would think that there's something more going on, and that there is like, and there is a part of Joe that does love him, but she's not ready for that kind of love, which I think is a beautiful part of their relationship. It's like her learning what love can be, and like the love she kind of deserves in a way. Yeah. But they're not right for each other, but she now understands what is like a good partner for her, like a basis of it.
Yeah, and I just think his character, like he has much more of an arc in the movie, and who he becomes and who he is in his relationship with each of the sisters. Yeah. Maybe not Beth, but just with each of the sisters makes that story so much stronger. Yeah. Like that great scene with him and Emma Watson, where he kind of insults her for her looks. Like it's so much better in the 2019 version because they've both been established characters rather than just like the scene has to happen because it happened in the books. Like, no, this scene is about their characters and both learning about each other. Yeah. Which I think is really smart that Greta Gerwig did it that way. And then I think the relationship that he and Joe have obviously is like the center stone of the movie. Yeah. And the development of that scene on the hill where she turns him down is, I hate in the old one where he like gets down on one knee and proposes to her. Yeah. And it's like, but in this version with Timothée Chalamet, he like, basically she prods him for the answer of like, well, you're going to be leaving for like 4 years, blah, 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 what's going to happen? He's like, and that's like when he's like, I want you to come with me and be, we can be married, ball. And that's just way better story-wise.
Right. Well, also, I love the delivery of it because it's almost, he's like, well, you know what's going to happen. Like, he, in his head, he's like, what are you talking about? Like, we're here, we're going to be together forever, which I think is so interesting.
That's how it used to be.
Yeah, that was how it used to be, is if you connected with someone with that, like that was it. You're getting married. Yeah. And I know we talked about Lori last, but now we have to talk about her person she actually ends up falling in love with, Friedrich.
I was going to make a comment at the end of this. Thank God he's not like 55 years old in the new version. I know.
It's so, what I like about the old one, not the age difference, because that is really weird. but I do like how we kind of see him more as a person. Like, we understand why she falls in love with him versus Lori more. And I feel like in the newer one, you get that, oh, she loves him and likes him. But I feel like the old one, you kind of understand why a bit more.
But Maddie, does she actually fall in love with him?
Oh, yes, that is, like, the question.
I think it's really brilliant that how she did that and constructed it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think the ending of the movie is very strong and poignant. And
yes.
Just how the book is. And of course she does actually fall in love with him because he's there at the school.
She does, but I love the subtlety of it. Like, it's not the end of her story.
Yeah.
It just happens to be like, yes, she does fall in love with him, but it does not define her. It's just, this is an important person in her life.
Yeah.
Which I really do like how she does that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you for joining us.
I really recommend the 2019 version.
I was going to say, like, 2019 one.
Very good. You don't need to watch the 1994 one.
No, we don't need to watch that again. I probably will because I love it, but I won't make you suffer through it.
Thank God.
All right. This has been Maddie Atlee and Jake Burke. Thank you for joining us, and we will turn into your personal screens sometime soon in the future.